One of the most common questions I keep receiving regarding War of the Visions is how to choose vision cards for a team. Do you just go for damage? Do you always need to bring an agility vision card in your team to have better performance? No, you don't, but that's what we'll talk about today. So we'll talk about the damage calculation formula first so you understand the actual impact on damage that the vision cards you choose has. Then we'll talk about general use vision cards that are not elemented limited, which ones I think you always have to bring if you have them, and just generally tips on team building. So let's begin. Before we take too deep a dive into the vision cards, I want to talk about the damage formula. It's very important to understand that it is a multiplication of your unit stats with a damage mod from the ability. And if you want to have the highest amount of damage, you need to raise them both because they're multiplied together. If you have a low baseline of stat with a super high mod, you will deal low damage. Same thing if you use a low mod ability with super high stats. The ideal scenario is you want high mod and high stat together, and then that's how you end up reaching crazy numbers. Which stats come into factor? It really depends on the unit's class. Typically, a unit will use 100% of their magic or their attack, and then some extra stats depending on the class. For example, Black Rose brings in 100% of her magic, 15% of dexterity, 10% of agility, and 5% of luck. Now you can tell, these other numbers are really low, and at the end of the day, 15% of your 300 luck will not matter too much in the overall damage. It's really more the magic component that will play its part, but there is something else and I felt it was important to mention it. And then you multiply that with your damage mod, and that depends on the ability. Every ability has different mods. Typically low abilities will have something that goes around 120 or so, and then super high mod abilities will go around 200, 240 or so. So this is the amount of your stats that you're using. For example, on screen we have Dark, which uses 141% of the stats that we see on the other side. If you add a vision card that increases your modifier, for example, on screen we have Diabolos that would give you 35 Dark attack up. This is a direct increase in stats. It is added additively to the mod. So instead of having 141%, if you add the Diabolos VC, you now use 176% of your stats. And then this together is your total damage. It will then be mitigated by resistances, by the enemy spirit, by barriers, and other factors that come in for mitigation, but the baseline is right there. So looking at that, should you use a mod up or a magic up vision card? I believe if you want the single vision card that's going to give you the strongest increase, you want to use the magic up 50%. And the reason for that is quite simple. Mods are already very high. In today's meta, teams are often mono-element, so you'll have 2 to 3 units that each bring their own 15 mod to the calculations. You typically have a weapon that's going to give you a 15 mod or a 45 mod if it's an element-exclusive weapon. And so there are many other ways to get mods outside of vision cards. There aren't that many ways to increase your stats, and if you're putting a 50% magic up on somebody like the Black Rose, you're getting more than 250 extra magic. That is going to be multiplied by your already high mod, and so it's more impactful in terms of damage than getting a single card on the other end. But again, most damage will be a magic up card with a mod up card because they're multiplied with each other, and that leads to crazy numbers. So enough about the math, let's look at some vision cards. First of all, Ramuh, I just spoke about it. It is really, really good. And when you want a high damage team, I recommend bringing this over damage type. The main reason is it will affect several different damage types as well, right? If you're using a Starlit Elena and a Jaden together, one of them uses missile attack, the other uses slash attack. Your magic type VC will not help you all that much, even though they do have magic type attacks if they want to. The magic up will affect them no matter what. Now, obviously for the light example, you would bring Bahamut, but there are other units for other elements that don't have access to a Bahamut vision card, for example. And then if you want to increase your mods further, the Blossoms in the Dark vision card that we see in the top right is actually very interesting. It's really a PvP oriented card. It only increases your modifier towards humans, but it increases all magic scaling moves. So Starlit Elena's slashing move will increase due to that. Jaden's missile attacks will increase due to that. And so any magic scaling move gets a 25 extra mod. It's not as high as 35, obviously, but it's still very, very good. So you lose out on damage a little bit, but it gives you a lot more versatility in terms of damage type. Another advantage you would get by using a Ramuh VC that gives you an extra amount of magic is healing. Healing is not impacted by any type of damage mod. It's impacted by healing power up, which is not currently available in vision cards that much. So if you want to increase your healing, you gotta use some magic up and just go there. So now we know, if you want to, you could bring 3 different offensive vision cards and try to go for one-shot strategies. But I find that this way of thinking does not necessarily give you much of an advantage. It doesn't matter if your first hit deals 70% of the enemy's HP or 90% of their HP. You still need 2 hits to kill them, and unless they get healed in the meantime, it's not really going to have much of an impact. Either way, in today's meta, healers usually just full life people when they try to heal them, and so you still need the same amount of hits to kill them. I prefer going for the margin where I deal 60% HP twice, and I can use another vision card on defense or utility rather than go all in on offense. The sweet spot that I found for most of my teams is 2 offensive vision cards and then 1 utility or defensive VC seems to do the trick. I don't need to go all in on damage because I still can't one-shot people most of the time. Not all units have that potential, and I don't generally play hyper carries that just kill everybody in a single attack. One aspect of the vision card that I think is often underestimated is accuracy. It is extremely important, and whenever I go in a game mode where I'm going in blind, that could be guild battle unless my scouts have been very accurate, or that could be class matches, I bring accuracy. All my teams will have one way of accuracy, either a luck up vision card, an accuracy up vision card, and then on top of that, I'll stack up an accuracy up Esper and an accuracy up piece of gear. What I've found is that more often than not having an armor or not having a defensive vision card will not make the difference between surviving 2 to 3 hits or 1 to 2 hit. Again, we're coming into how many hits can you survive. If you already survive a single hit, you're fine. You just stack up accuracy and you make sure that you don't miss the enemy team, because that will lead you to losing. And nothing's more frustrating than losing because you've missed that one attack that would have made the difference. I think VCs like the Black Rose, if you're equipping it on a dark team, is almost a must, and not because of the agility. I value the accuracy part as much as I value the agility part. And if you were giving me the choice between using the Trousseau vision card that gives me 35 magic attack up, or the Typhon vision card that gives me 25 magic attack up, but also 15 accuracy, I will pick Typhon every single time. That little 10 mod is not worth the 15% chance to miss that I'm getting in exchange for it. So accuracy is king, and unless you're in arena where you can pick your enemies, I always love to stack as much accuracy as I can on my team. Something I hear often and disagree with is that you need an agility card if you want to be able to compete. Now, I think that might be true for manual gameplay, because at that point, there's so many gunners or teams that execute their game plan very early and blast you down, that having some form of high agility is very critical in giving you even a chance to counter. But for auto, I do not value agility nearly as much, and the reason is simple. What you need is not to act first. What you need is to hit the enemy team first, right? That's what it comes down to in the end. The guy that starts playing can still get hit first, depending on the map, depending on the movement. In the general World of Vision map, if everybody moves forward, yes, typically Team 1 advances, Team 2 advances, Team 1 hits, and then the player that starts wins. But if you know you're slower than the enemy team, or you're building a team that doesn't have an agility up vision card, and you know that you're going to be targeting enemies that do have it, you're going to be slower, just make sure you cast AoE buffs, your team stays together a short while longer, the enemy team approaches, then you hit them. There are plenty of ways to make sure that even if you're a slower team, you still get the first hit off, and it doesn't matter all that much. I think if you're a ranged attacking team that can start peppering the enemy team from a long distance, then sure, agility up is really good because you do benefit from extra turns while hitting them. But otherwise, not as important as a lot of players make it be. Then finally, there are some vision cards that I think are must-use cards for their elements, and it's all the vision cards that have an individual 30% magic up, or if we're talking physical, a 30% attack up. These bonuses are crazy good. If you're talking about an individual unit that will hit super hard, that's what happens. I was talking earlier about not usually going for one-shot strategies. A unit like Visalier with the Freezes card on top of her, a Ramu vision card that gives her more magic, and then another type attack can actually one-punch people, and at that point it becomes a viable strategy. It's part of the reason why Halloween Little Leela is so insane, is because the Typhon VC gives her 30% individual magic. So those VCs have crazy value. We were talking about the damage calculations earlier. It increases your magic and your mod together, which is why it leads to crazy numbers. So yeah, those vision cards, if you're playing a magic-oriented unit of these specific elements, ice or wind, yeah, these are very hard not to use. And then again, if you're playing a fire-oriented team or a light-oriented team, the Bahamut VC or the Encounter of Heroes VC really are always the best choice for damage. Don't go for a Trousseau VC or something else. Go for the magic up. You even get some other bonuses on top. It's really hard to beat. Bahamut gives you agility. Encounter of Heroes gives you accuracy. I just talked about how important I think those two can be. So yeah, that's it. So that's going to be it from me today. It's a little bit more of an informal video. I wanted to react to some questions I was getting and hopefully give my little bit of advice. If it does help you with team building, great, let me know. And if there's other topics like this that you'd like me to talk about, please let me know and I'll be very glad to make a video on those. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time.